11. It's 7:10.
You're listening to Morning Report, and there's been a major development in the story about the leaking of Simon Bridges' travel expenses. A person claiming to be a National MP has sent Mr Bridges an anonymous text confessing to being responsible. And they've begged for the inquiry into the leak to be called off, saying they have mental health problems and being exposed publicly could push them over the edge. Our political reporter Jo Moir is breaking this story this morning. She's with me in the Wellington studio. Jo, good morning. Tell us more about the text message.
Good morning. So yes, Susie, the text was sent to both Mr Bridges and the Speaker Trevor Mallard, and it was sent from an anonymous number. The person claimed to be a National MP, and they provided a number of details of conversations from National Party caucus meetings over a period of weeks in order to prove that they were in fact that person and that identity. Just to be clear, I haven't actually seen this text message. I have just simply been told about the contents of it by a source.
Okay, so we don't actually know who this person is?
No. In the text message, the MP said they were responsible for leaking Mr Bridges' expenses to Newshub. So you'll recall there was the story early last week where it was talked about the almost $114,000 of expenses over that 3-month April to June period for travel and accommodation. And so the person who sent the text message has said that basically they did it because they thought that Mr Bridges was arrogant and they wanted him to be held to account for his expenses. The anonymous texter went on to say that they had suffered mental health issues in the past and they were feeling very vulnerable as a result of this inquiry that had been launched, particularly because Mr Mallard had said that they were going to expose the person that it was who leaked it, and they said that they were worried if they were found out and exposed that it would push them over the edge.
Okay, so this is thorny territory. Who's provided the contents of the text message to you then?
So it probably won't surprise you that I'm not going to reveal my sources, but I can say that they are reliable and I have since verified the contents of that text as well. The source told me they were going public as they had concerns about the inquiry continuing to go ahead when what they said was clearly an MP crying out for help.
Now, what about Simon Bridges? Has he responded at all?
No, he hasn't. So I put questions to his office last night and they declined to comment. However, we do understand that the police are looking into this. So he's chosen to not comment to us, but I mean, this is now public, obviously, and he'll have to give some sort of a response unless he's planning on evading the media.
What does this mean for Mr Bridges, though? How damaging, for example, is this to him?
This is definitely going to affect Mr Bridges in terms of the stability of his leadership. If we're to believe the text, then this is a National MP who is responsible for that leak, and that is something that Mr Bridges has repeatedly said he is confident is not the case. The sheer fact that there's been a second leak now will only raise more questions and probably, I suspect, paranoia within the caucus as well.
Okay, so where to from here, and indeed what is the situation with the inquiry? Where's it at?
So interestingly, I approached Mr Mallard yesterday about this and he refused to comment on the text message. Yet he put out a press release not long after that announcing the appointment of the QC Michael Heron, who's going to head the inquiry into Mr Bridges' leaked expenses. So the timing of that's quite interesting and raises questions really, because the terms of reference for that inquiry aren't actually going to be set out until the House is back sitting in the first week of Parliament. The first week back in the first week of September. So there's actually no urgency, I guess, around that appointment yesterday. They could have held off on that. As I said, the House is still in recess next week, so there's quite a lot of time to pass before sort of these terms of reference of the inquiry will be known. It's possible the National Party could actually, in that time, identify who this person is and get them help. There's also the possibility that Mr Mallard and Mr Bridges will just decide that this is too risky to go ahead with, given that the stakes are actually quite high now.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Jo Moir, our political reporter there with that major development on the story of Simon Bridges' travel expenses leak. It's now 7:15.
A lot happening in Australian politics too. Malcolm Turnbull dodged another vote on his leadership yesterday afternoon, but time could be running out for him. He went ahead and demanded a petition signed by all those MPs who want him gone. If there is to be